Everyone, Dr. D here, 𝘿𝙧 Performance Plus Physical Therapy. And today is Monday. It is April 20th. I have to track time by dates now, which I never did, but it is absolutely essential these days. And I'm here with Q&A with Dr. D. And today's topic, we are talking about hips. We have moved on from talking about ankles and knees, and now we are talking about hips. So just getting things together here on IG. I'm on IG and Facebook at the same time. Hope everyone is well. So today's question, guys, is a hip replacement the best option for hip pain? Very interesting question. So to answer that question, the first question that you need to answer would be, what is the cause of your hip pain? There are many causes of hip pain. It can be anywhere from arthritic symptoms, meaning there's some sort of degeneration in the joint. It could be bursitis. It can be tendonitis of one of the muscle groups that surround the hips. You can have a labral tear, or you can even have something as insidious as some sort of osteonecrosis, which is some sort of the death of the bone that makes up the hip joint, or you can even have symptoms coming in from your lower back. The point is that there are multiple sources of hip pain, and in order to figure out what the best solution is, you have to figure out what the best, what is your diagnosis, what's actually causing the pain. So let's talk a little bit about hip replacements. A hip replacement, guys, is basically the replacement of the hip joint, and that's usually because of some sort of degeneration of the joint itself. The hip joint is a ball and socket, so if this is your socket, this is your ball, and basically your hip moves around that way. And when you have some sort of degeneration within the joint, you have a wearing down of the lining of the ends of the bones, which is called the cartilage of the bone. There's a wearing down of that cartilage that's in that joint. And because of that, it can cause stiffness, it can cause pain, it can cause swelling in that joint, and a lot of restrictions in mobility and function for patients that may have any sort of hip arthritis or hip osteoarthritis issues. So that is the number one indication for hip replacement. Hi, 𝘿𝙧, what's going on? Thank you for joining. Drop your questions, and if you do have any, today we're talking about hip replacements, or if the sources of hip pain and how it refers to hip replacements. So again, guys, when we're talking about a hip replacement, we're really talking about replacing that joint and replacing the joint itself if the joint has been worn down. That is the standard of care for osteoarthritis of the hip. So if you are having osteoarthritic symptoms, you've gone through a lot of conservative measures, please drop it in for me. You've gone through a lot of conservative measures, you've gone through physical therapy or lots of injections or medications, and your doctor, preferably an orthopedic one, has indicated to you after doing some testing that you may be a candidate for surgery, then a hip replacement is actually indicated in that situation. Okay, so that is the short version of if you need a hip replacement as an option or the best option for hip pain. It really all depends on if the cause of your hip pain is osteoarthritis, and if that's the case, you may have a couple of options ahead of you before you get to a hip replacement if you have not done conservative options before getting to a surgical one. So I'm gonna look at the comments. Say hi, TR Muse, how are you? Hope things are well. Drop a comment or drop a question. And if you do have a question for me about anything regarding hip pain, let me know how that goes. I'm going to check Facebook in the meantime to see what we have here. And that looks pretty okay. Okay, 𝘿𝙧, did you have a question for me? Drop it in the comments. Anyone on Facebook have a question for me? Drop it in the comments. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for supporting my fellows. Oh, thank you for hanging out with me today. If you do have a question, anything, drop it in. I'm here to answer all the questions. All right. 𝘿𝙧, what we got? Oh, you said you had one. Okay, so I thought he said, guys, that he had a question, but he was saying no, he had a THR, he had a total hip replacement. How did that go for you? How did you know that you needed to get a hip replacement? What was your journey like? If you don't mind sharing a little bit of your story for us. So for the guys on Facebook, we have someone commenting that they did have an actual hip replacement. So it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts, if he's willing to share, of course, about how a hip replacement went for him, if he knew, like, if that was the best option for him. So if you care to share a little bit, that would be great. If not, that's perfectly fine also. And I am going to check one more time with Facebook. Hey, Ashley. Good to see you, honey. All right. So it seems like we are all out of questions. That's okay. Thank you for joining us. Many years of pain of arthritis. I was down bone to bone. It was the best decision I've ever made. Yes, guys, that definitely can be something that's really, really difficult to deal with. Arthritic pain can be very extremely painful, and it can really change the quality of your life in terms of sitting and standing and walking and doing all of the things that you regularly would do. And sometimes the best choice is to get a surgical intervention so that you can just reclaim your life. So glad that you had that solution that worked well for you, 𝘿𝙧. Glad you had that. Tiramisu says we need to connect. I have another performance PT to refer my patients with. Definitely, I will message you after this. 𝘿𝙧 says, as a teen, I had a slip before. Yeah, femoral epiphysis. Yes. Yes, we had a skiffy. So that's a term, guys, that happens with a lot of males actually. I believe the age range is between 8 to 14, and the problem with that is that when you look at the femoral head, it looks like a little bit of a cone, and if you looked at it on an X-ray, you see that there's a little bit of a jagged and almost like the ice cream has slipped off of the cone, and that indicates that you have a little bit of a break or a fracture within the epiphysis line, which is basically the growth plate of the femur. And that happens in young guys, young boys. Yep, he said yes, age 14. That happens in young guys, and that can be especially pretty painful. And if not corrected, can definitely lead to early osteoarthritic symptoms. I'm glad you got that taken care of. Great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Any other questions, guys? Ooh, my laptop has to charge, so I'm hoping it doesn't cut off on me. I wasn't aware of that. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. 𝘿𝙧, thank you for sharing that story. That's a great story. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. Let me know what you think. Shoot me a heart or something in the comments. But guys, today we're talking about hip pain. Tomorrow I'm going to pick up another topic, or I may talk about skiffy if I think that's of interest to people to talk a little bit more about. Drop your questions in for me. If you have any other questions, drop it in. If it's questions of a private nature, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm happy to answer your questions. Dr. D, Performance Plus Physical Therapy, Q&A with me every afternoon into the evening. I'm a little bit later today, but that's okay. But every evening, you will catch me here live on Facebook and live on Instagram. All right? So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. All right. Bye-bye.